Welcome to Inside Games Daily, the only gaming news show brave enough to be a little skeptical, just a little, of the Stop Killing Games initiative. Just a touch.
Just a sprinkle, that's right. And to be clear, we don't disagree with it. One of the weirder things about this initiative is just how polarizing everything's getting. It's very combative, which is weird because we got to be having fun with this. We're just going to do what we always do and look at the situation practically, which, tends to favor the status quo. But we can be dreamers sometimes, so, it's still something anyone could support.
That's correct. So let's get into it. Content creator Ross Scott started the, quote, Stop Killing Games initiative over a year ago in April 2024 in response to Ubisoft's shutdown of the crew. Good for him, honestly. Good idea.
Yeah, to Scott's credit, rather than doing the typical YouTuber thing where you just bellyache a lot, make yourself out to be the victim, get a shitload of views, no, he actually did something, published StopKillingGames.com, and filed petitions and complaints with several world governments. There's actually a really impressive list of all the actions taken.
Awesome. The petition's goals are simple, but also kind of not. I mean, on the surface, Stop Killing Games sounds great, but then, there's a lot of other stuff that gets roped into it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful sentiment, but when the rubber meets the road, I guess we'll find out. Also, like I kind of mentioned before, people get really touchy depending on how you characterize this whole thing. So we're going to keep it vague, which is kind of what the proposals themselves do.
Basically, Stop Killing Games seeks to keep purchased games playable after any sort of end of service from a video game company. So basically, you bought it, you should get to keep it. And a good example is Anthem. Anthem's going to shut down. You'll never get to play that again unless the Stop Killing Games initiative stops that, and you can play whenever you want.
In the year since filing the first actions, most of them have hit dead ends. I think even the UK government was like, this is not an issue, and just kind of waved it away. But there is one very bright exception.
Yeah, the EU petition recently crossed its required 1 million signature threshold. Actually 1.23 million at the time of writing.
Yeah, this means the initiative can be presented to the EU Commission. Once adopted by the Commission, it can then be submitted to European Parliament.
That's great. This seemed extremely unlikely just 2 weeks ago when the petition had under half its required 1 million signatures with a deadline at the end of July.
Yeah, I found that a little ironic that seemingly the exact folks that are sore about games getting shut off are also very activated by we're almost out of time messaging, the FOMO stuff. It's the same nerve that gets twisted, I think.
That's true. Ross Scott acknowledges all the signatures might not be real in a recent update, encouraging folks to continue spreading the word to EU citizens to ensure that some enthusiastic folks haven't sabotaged the initiative by spoofing signatures. That'd be very, very bad. Hopefully that has not happened.
Yeah, that is pretty bad in this case because it's not a change.org petition. You have to be an EU citizen to sign this. And if you fake that, that is a crime. So you shouldn't be doing that anyway. The Stop Killing Games initiative crossed another milestone today. It's attracted the attention of a lobbying group.
Oh, okay. Video Games Europe, an organization that seeks to, quote, serve Europe's games ecosystem by representing the interests of Europe's and the world's most successful, creative, and most innovative game publishers and developers. Issued a statement on Stop Killing Games today.
Yeah, they basically say they don't support it for a few reasons. First, making private servers public would make the rights holders liable for illegal activity that happens in those games after end of service. And second, that designing a game to function offline from the beginning would be prohibitively expensive for some games. Basically, it would require too much planning, too much coding. And for some games, it would prevent them from being made in the first place. That's too much feature scope to even make the project go forward.
I have a couple of rebuttals for that, but I'm going to let Ross Scott actually do the rebuttal. His was very, very swift. He argues that a terms of service document could be worded to release rights holders of all liability once a game hits end of service. That's immediately the one thing I was like, yeah, you change it. You control the liability, like, you idiots. He also flatly disagrees that planning an offline mode would be prohibitively complicated or expensive.
Yeah, as far as what's next for the petition, Scott will have to verify all the signatures with each individual nation in the EU and obtain what are called statements of support.
Once those statements are verified, Scott will then be able to present to the European Commission.
Wow, what a journey, huh? I mean, I'm glad that this is converting into real practical action. Maybe I'm thinking too far ahead because that's where my mind tends to go. I keep thinking about the step forward and the step front of that. How do they do this? How do they do that? And I'll explore that in a minute. But hey, at least it's going this far. And maybe there are practical solutions to all my concerns that will be found out as the chartist path forward. But yeah, it's funny how Europe is kind of the only place where something like this could happen. I think what was it? Belgium was one of the first countries to pass legislation about loot boxes and things like that. Now, ironically, those have faded out of games, which is pretty cool. Who knows if that legislation helped? But certainly the tide turned, and it was mostly because of European consumer protections.
Yeah, Lawrence, I wanted to let you kind of rant about this because I know you've got a right on target rant that a lot of people are not going to want to hear. I promise you. And then I will speak from the United States perspective after that, which they're also not going to. Nobody wants to hear anything that we're saying. So we're just going to add just a little dose of reality into it, just a little bit. We do want. Look, I will say, if you do live in the EU, go sign this petition. Like there is no harm in doing that. Like you should go sign that right now because it truly this is a fantastic initiative that, you know, if it comes to pass, awesome.
Yeah, even if I'm skeptical or I sound skeptical for the rest of this video, which I probably will, I still want the conversation to happen. And if it goes if it deviates at all in the consumer direction, you know, even if it's not 100% victory, that's still a win. So I'm very supportive of everyone that's investing their time and efforts into this. But and this is maybe where the United States has just crushed my will a little bit, but my concern is all about what happens even if a law passes, because there was a time where I may have thought that if a law passed there, now it is a law and the problem's fixed because people follow the law. No, they don't. Actually, big companies and companies that care about money won't. Like even if it becomes a law, they just won't do it, or they'll say that they'll do it and then they won't. So what happens then? You know, is there an agency that fines them? How big is that fine? Will it be meaningful? Probably not. It'll be cheaper for a company to just not do it and pay the fine at the end, or go out of business and not pay it at all because they have no money at that point. It worries me that even if this is worded very specifically, companies will exploit any loophole. And since it's so vague right now, and it kind of has to be vague right now, I don't know where this goes. And again, maybe that's me thinking too far ahead, but man, yeah, I can see so many things. You know, like a company they shut it down, they release their server, whatever, that's it. With no documentation, doesn't run, like specifically maybe even sabotaged so that it doesn't work. And who enforces that? I don't know. Data miners get in there, they find that entire chunks of code have been ripped out, the company doesn't answer it because they're not supporting it anymore. And then what? Then it's another petition, and then 3 years from now, we talk to a commission that submits a certificate for approval, and by then the company has released 5 more games and they don't give a shit and no one cares anymore. And I don't know, what hurts me, I think at the end of all of this is that the market, and this may be the most US pilled thing of all, but the market seems to have already made its decision, and unfortunately they're kind of okay with it. If they weren't, then those products would not have succeeded, or people would be unduly mad after the fact. I get that it's all about principle, but principle doesn't really live very well as a law unless it's enforced, and enforcement is where I'm just like, man, how do you even do that? So that's my depressing walkthrough of the situation in my head. But still, I'd like the process to get started because it may go somewhere. But Bruce, what do you think about this whole situation? Yeah,
allow me to get ahead of the comments, Lawrence. The comments to Lawrence are going to say, but Lawrence, this is how things start. They start grassroots. This is how laws start, right? Like you start a petition, and then it goes to the government, and then they form a law, and then the law gets enforced, blah, blah, blah. Totally. Absolutely. And that's why I think Lawrence and I, we do not disagree with Stop Killing Games at all. But again, we've been doing this a long time. We've been living life a long time. We know that there are some practical obstacles to this. So I'm not going to say, here in the US, the only thing that changes companies' minds is money. You already know that I say that 1,000 times, and I say that all, but truly, that if you don't want them to make live service games that are going to die when they decide to cancel them, don't buy them. That's always my answer for the US. But in the EU, things are different. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that the EU has decided to listen to this and may turn this into a law. Now, it'll be up to them to enforce it, and whether or not that starts to cross borders and oceans to us, great. That'd be awesome. This would be good for, I feel like, almost everybody except for the companies, and fuck them. I mean, kind of fuck the companies, right? Like, I don't give a shit about whether or not they lose another $10 million trying to keep a game up. I don't, fuck you. Like, whatever. So, so for me, that is on the companies to decide if there is a law passed. Now, in the US, it's probably not going to happen. But we might have like a middle ground. We might reach a middle ground somewhere in there that, you know, like instead of a law that's like, you can no longer release games that die. Like it will be like, well, the game can exist for a year after they decide to cancel it or something like that. Hopefully it'll be something to that effect, because obviously Lawrence and I love video games. We do. We also talk about video games from a business perspective on this show. So I think in our heart of hearts, we want this to succeed. We want everyone to be able to play every video game forever, but it isn't the case. It's just not practical. The grassroots portions of this that I would say, like, if you like the Stop Killing Games initiative, Lawrence always brings it up, but we should support Good Old Games, GOG. That is a downloadable copy they give you without DRM, and then you can play the game whenever you want for as long as you want. There is no online heartbeat, none of that. You just download it on Good Old Games and you're good to go. Support companies like that.
Yeah, it's good that you bring that up, because I was thinking about that, of like, there is some choice now, and I think through that choice we see what the market will tolerate by and large. And I know that these are not protections for the masses. These are protections for the enthusiasts, people who wanna, for some reason, play Concord or The Crew. What gets me is that, yeah, I think like by US standards, if any court were to look at this, they'd be like, is there choice? Can people choose? Or are they forced to buy this? They're forced to do this one thing they think gets yanked away from them. And yeah, the answer is they do have choice. So to me, at least in the US, it's gonna be a let the market sort it out situation. I don't think you can convince a court. The thing that I keep thinking about, private ownership of art, you know? If a corporation funds a game to be made, they have the right to some extent to dictate how people, you know, enjoy that. If it's paying $70, $80 at a drop at a register to buy the game, if it's being forced through their arbitrary service or whatever, I think by and large a US court would be like, hey, if you don't like it, go somewhere else. But like, there is that one game and it's not going to be repeated anywhere else. So to me, I don't know, it feels like, I keep thinking about somebody who's individually wealthy enough to accumulate private art in their own home. Theoretically, it'd be a social good if everyone could enjoy that art, but they were wealthy enough to buy it and they wanted it for themselves. They wanted to see it whenever they wanted to. I don't know that, you know, Bobby Kotick is busting out, what was it, Crash Team Rumble at night in his secret vault. But yeah, I guess it's where you draw that line is subjective, and it's kind of up to society. I hate to throw that word around, but the thing that bugs me is it seems like society's already spoken, and they're so distracted, and it's like, it's just the small enthusiasts that seem to really, really, really care about the issue. And I do too, because I'm also an enthusiast. But yeah, another thread that I just connected is it doesn't really surprise me that Video Games Europe is not wholly behind this, because even the ESA has just been a mouthpiece for the industry for a while. So that's what you're gonna get. I think it's, when they say support games, it's mostly the business side of games. So anything that makes games cheaper or sell more, they're gonna be into. The consumer protection's not really their place.
I know we sound jaded. I do. I know, but I mean, we're in the United States, and right now there's a kind of a pretty jaded time for us specifically. So I will say, if you live in the EU, go sign that petition. I want you to go sign the petition, and I want it to change things, and I would love to see it start to cross borders into the UK and the US and force companies to change, because there is nothing better than watching these greedy companies get forced to change. I love it. It so rarely happens, but I would love to see that happens to these companies that always make the line go up and only operate for the shareholders and not for us. I would love to see them get fucked.
Most of them are getting fucked. I mean, sadly, that doesn't only affect them. There's, you know, rounds of layoffs and whatever, but yeah, it would be nice to have more creative access, I guess, and to not have it be so one-sided. But speaking of sharing sides all around, we'd like to shout out some patrons that support the show here. These two patrons are very special, because while we all have a certain count, you know, behind us, these two patrons have not killed a single game. Not a single one in their entire lives. Jonathan Lanowski and Nick Calderon. Thank you for your pacifism.